Welcome back. So in this video, we're going through the exercises, warm-up and workout of session 7, in which we're focusing on control flow in Python, conditional statement if, else, and also loops, as well as error. So let's start with the warm-up exercise. In question 1, we're being asked to assign the value 7 to a variable guess me, and then write a conditional test to print the string too low, too high, or just right, depending on whether the value of the variable is less than, greater than, or equals to 7. So this is basically very much like the number guessing game that we have worked out in the intro session. I'm going to start to assign the value 7 to guess me, and then I'm going to write the if statement to express that condition. In all of these exercises, I suggest you pause for a minute and try to do it on your own before continuing watching me. So the syntax of the if statement, if, and then condition. Again, the condition has to evaluate to a boolean, so if guess me is equals to 7, colon, and notice that we are now in the block belonging to the if statement, right? That's the indentation, and now I'm going to do print just right, else if guess me is less than 7, I'm going to print too low. I can do else if guess me greater than 7, but anyhow that's a remaining case, so I'm going to do else print too high. Of course the result is just right. If I change this one, I'm gonna get a different result. Now in this second exercise, we're supposed to assign the value 7 to guess me and the value 1 to a variable start, and then write a loop that compares start to guess me and print too low if start is less than guess me. Once start equals guess me, it prints found it, and then exit the loop. If start is greater than guess me, it prints oops and exit the loop. Okay. So let's start with the easiest step, which is assigning values to these variables. So guess me is 7 and start is 1. Next we want to start with a loop. So I'm going to write a while loop. Compare starts with guess me. It will print too low if starts is less than guess me. And continues the increment, it increments start as the end of the loop. So basically what we are going to do here, we're going to compare guess me to start. So if start is less than guess me, I'm going to print too low. And then at the end we want to increase start by 1. So this will keep printing too low, too low, too low. But eventually when start equals to guess me, we can print found it and then exit the loop. Now if start is greater than guess me, we will print loop oops and exit the loop. Okay. So how do we deal with this? Now, because we have different conditions here, there are different strategies we can employ. One way to do it is to write an infinite loop while true, and then start, increase start by 1, and we write an if statement here. So we can do if start is less than guess me, print too low, again, indentation is important, else if start is equals to guess me, I'm going to print found it, and of course the last case, else print oops. Now the remaining part is to exit the loop because this is an infinite loop, and notice that this will keep going on forever. So if you commit this mistake, make sure you interrupt the kernel, and we need to exit the loop after printing found it, and also after printing oops. So in this case, if we happen to start from a value which is low, less than, guess me, it's going to keep printing too low until it prints found it. If we happen to start from a higher value, say more than 7, it's just going to print oops and then break the loop. Now let's take a look at number 3. We want to write a for loop that prints the values in the list 3, 2, 1, 0. So I'm going to go with a for loop for v in the list 3, 2, 1, 0. I can do print v, and this will print these values. We can also add an optional separator. So if we want to separate this value by a white space, we can do end is equal to white space, semicolon. It depends on how we want to format these values. Well, the key point in here is that the syntax of the for loop is the for variable and then the sequence that you want to iterate over. Okay, so let's take a look at a more meaningful example here. So that's the example of extracting the email address or addresses from the message using a loop. So we have an email message, and there are a couple of emails that we would like to extract. So the first step in this problem is to think about a way to break the message, which is a string, to individual words. Now once we do this, once we have a list of words, we can use a loop, such as a for loop, to go over each word and determine whether the word is an email or not. So again, notice that to determine whether a word is an email or not, we will need a conditional statement and if statement. So kind of this exercise puts together things that we've learned last time, as well as our new knowledge of loops and conditionals. Alright, so the first step is to break this message to words, and this can be done using the split function. Now again, notice that the split function is giving us a list of words. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go over each individual words in this list. And let's print word for now. So this will basically print each word in an individual line. Now obviously we don't want to print each word. We want to print each word only if the word is an email. So we need to make this print conditional on word being an email, if word is an email. Of course, this is not a valid code, but this is the idea. Do you want to test whether the word is an email address? Okay. So how do we do it? How do we determine that a certain word is an email address? Well, of course, if we want to make it, bulletproof, we need to check that the word has the different components of the email. An easy heuristic, a shortcut, is to test whether the character is within word. Now, that doesn't mean that the word is an email, because it can be a mention, for instance, or it can be not well formatted email, but this is a good shortcut for now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to test whether the word contains the character. Now we can use the function find, or we can use the function index, right? And remember, those functions will return the index of the position of the character or the substring in the string. So I can do word.find at not equal to -1, right? Because if it's -1, it doesn't exist. Print word. This will basically limit our print to these two words, which happen to be the email addresses of interest. Another way to do it is to use the in operator. So I can do if at in word, take out this, I don't need it, print word, which is similar to the find and it's a bit more readable. If at in word, print word. All right, so that's will kind of parse the emails from that big message. Now, often we don't want to print. We probably want to process this data. We probably want to put these words in another list for further processing. So instead of printing words, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a list called emails, which is empty. And instead of printing word, I'm going to do emails.append word. Okay, that's one way to do it. And once I'm done, I'm going to report on the value of emails. And you can see that now the 2 emails have been put in this list called emails that we can process, further down the road. That's one way to append it to a list, or we can use the plus equal word. We have seen this before. It's the same. So in this example, we combined our knowledge of the string and its functions and loops and conditionals to come up with a meaningful short code that parses emails from this text. And we will see that we can further improve this code when we talk about list comprehensions next week and regular expressions as well. Let's take a look at some more complicated examples here. So the first one is asking us to extract numbers that have a special formatting from a certain message. So let's say their phone numbers, social security numbers. In general, probably you need to do this to flag inappropriate messages. Like if you're trying to send an email, most email clients nowadays will warn you if you include a sensitive piece of information. So the question is asking us to write a loop that goes over the word in the secret message and then write another loop that goes over each character. If all characters are numbers or a dash, then the word is a number. We should print it. All right. So the first step is very similar to what we've done before. I'm going to split my message. Of course, we need to run this code here to each individual words. Next, I'm going to write a loop for each word in words. I'm going to print for now. That's just kind of a scaffolding to start. Okay, I don't want to print individual word. I only want to print these words. Now, in contrast to the email condition, which was only detected when one character is at, this condition is more strict. It's basically saying each character has to be either a number or a dash. So how do we do it? We need to go over each character and ensure that it's character or a dash. So one way to do it is to go for each character in word and do the opposite if it happens. So we can go over each character in the word, and if it's not a number or a dash, then we know for sure that the word is not a secret, one of these sensitive numbers. So to store this information, we need what we call a marker variable. So I'm going to start with the assumption that sensitive is true, and once I go over each character in the word, the moment I detect a character which is not a number or a dash, I can turn sensitive to be false. So I'm going to write a condition that tests whether the character is not a number or a dash. Let's think about this. What are the numbers, digits, 0 to 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. So I can do something like this. If C is not in 0, 1 to 9, right? I can type all of them, or a dash, right? Well, of course, I have to type in all the numbers. We can proceed, right? But notice that C is also a string, so I don't need a list. I'm fine, I can type a list, but it's easier to do it like this. All numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a dash. So if C is not inside the string, then don't forget C is a character. I'm going over each character in the word. I'm going to turn sensitive to false. And once I go outside the loop, of course, I can at this point save some effort and break. This is not necessary because, the moment it's false, it can't get through again, but I can save some, extra loops, iterations, and break the loop. And outside, if sensitive, I can print word. Let's turn off the first print and run the code now, and you can see that I get the two words, sensitive words printed for me. All right, so first, starting from the assumption that sensitive is true, going over each word, each character in each word, and then the moment I notice that the character is not one of these, like for instance S or E here, then the word itself is not sensitive. Now once I'm done in my second loop, I test whether sensitive is true, which means all characters are digits or dashes, and then print word. Now here's a shortcut. Instead of doing this, actually Python provides a way for us to write an else part of loops. I mean, this may kind of seem and sound weird because it's one of the unique languages that has this feature. But the idea here is that you can think about your loop as an if statement, right, as we have seen. And if the if statement itself or the kind of condition in the while statement or the for loop itself doesn't finish, doesn't, all of its iteration and finishes, it can go to the if statement part, to the else part of that. All right, so let's take a look at a small example here and take a look at how we can apply it here. Let's do I is equal to 0, and while I is less or equal to 10, or less than 10, print I. Of course, I forgot to increment I, so I got the infinite loop. Again, increment I by 1, and I get numbers from 0 to 9. Now, what happens when the loop finishes? When the loop finishes, I has a value of 10. Right? Let me turn off the print here. Right? So the next time it goes into the loop, because I is 10, it breaks the loop. Again, we can think about this as an if statement. If this has been an if statement, if I is less than 10, then I can do something here like print I is 10 or something, right? Of course, in this case, I'm not going to print I is 10 because I start from 0. But let's say I start from 9. Then I get if else. The if else itself is still true. It doesn't go into the else. But let's say I start from 10. Then this if statement is false. And then I can print I is 10. That's the same idea here if I have a while loop. When I have a while loop, it's like a condition. I go every time, and then I increase I. At some point in time, this condition is false, and when this condition is false, I'm going to go into the else part. If I do this, I'm going to get numbers from 0 to 9. That's inside the while. And once this condition turns to be false, I print I is 10 now. Okay, so why is this useful? I mean, this is useful because it provides us a way for us to do something once the loop finishes. And this thing is also conditional on not explicitly breaking the loop. If I break the loop, it means the loop will not anyhow finishes its normal execution, so I don't go into the break part. Let's take an example here. In this loop, I go over each character in the word, and if the character happens not to be one of these, I break. Now, if all of the characters at the end of the loop are one of digits, all digits or dashes, then I don't break. It means I have the opportunity after the loop for an else branch. So here is another way to do it. Just notice the difference. I'm going to split, same thing. The only thing that I don't need is the sensitive marker. I'm going to go over each character, and this is my 4. Now notice, imagine this is an if statement, and this is an else part of the statement, print word. It means that this else branch will only execute once this loop is over, and it's over normally. We don't break it explicitly, which means all of the characters are not sensitive, right? I don't need the marker variable again. So that basically will give me the same results, right? But without the marker variable. So this may be more familiar to you if you're coming to Python from a Java or C or C++, because that else statement doesn't go with loops. This one is more expressive if you manage kind of to internalize the fact that a loop is very similar to a condition in the sense that there's something that runs under a certain condition. In this case, as long as the list has more items to be processed, and once all of the items are processed, that condition is kind of false, so we have an else branch. Okay, so let's take a look at this exercise now. This one is asking us to print numbers from 1 to 31 and put the prefix 1 to numbers. So this is kind of like printing printing a calendar, month of January, 31 days. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write, we can do it with a while, with a for a day in range 1 to 32. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to print day. I'm just double checking that my range is correct, and now I'm going to provide the prefix. There are many ways to do it. The easy way is to do a formatted string, since I want to format my string as 1-day, and in this case I get 1-1 to 31. Alright, so that's good. Now it's asking us to print all days of all months. So the months go from 1 to 12. Obviously some months are, not all months are 31 days, but we're not worried right now about, this issue. So how do we do it? This is an example of a nested loop. We need our loop here that goes over each day, but we need to nest this loop within another loop that goes over each month. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to indent this one to indicate that it belongs to another loop, and I'm going to do for month in range 1 to 13, where it goes from 1 to 12, for day in range 1 to 32, and then I'm going month dash day, and once I'm done a certain month, I'll probably print kind of a separator just to indicate that this month is done. So I'm going to print 10 dashes here. So that basically will print 1, January, February, right, March, and so on. Alright, so that's an example of a nested loop, a loop within a loop, which means that this loop, which goes over each day, will run for each month. Now, next, let's address the issue that some months are only 30 days and February is 28 days this year. I'm not sure. Is 2020 a leap year? That's a good question. So let's see. Leap year. If it's a leap year, then it's a 29 days. So that's right. 2020 is a leap year. So actually, February is 29 days. Okay. So here is our previous code. The point in here is to make this range dependent on the month, whether the month itself is 30 days or 31 days or 29 days. So what I'm going to do to make this one, the length, the number of days, a variable, right? Of course, let's start with a kind of a scaffolding. So I'm going to do days is equal to, 32. That's basically the same. The key in here to make days depend on the months themselves, all right? So we have 31 day months in which days is 32. And let's deal with the remaining months. What are the months that are 30 days? So we've got April, right? We've got June, March, April, May, June. July and August are both 31 days, and then September, and then November. I'm going back to my school knowledge here. I should double check, but I'm pretty confident those are the 30 days months. January, February, March, April, June, July and August is 31 days, and then September and October. Okay. All right, so here's what I will do. I will test whether months is one of these. I can write a condition if months is equals to 4, or months is equal to 6, or months is equal to 9, or months is equal to 11. But the easy way to do it is to make this a list. If months is equal in this list, I'm going to set days to be 31, right? Because range will go, well, let's make it more expressive. I'm going to do here days is equal to 30 and range will be days plus 1. This makes the code more readable because the adjustment is happening when we call this function. Now, else if month is equals to February, of course, I mean, I can make this more sophisticated by looking at the year, which I don't have here. I'm going to set days to be equal to 29. Else days is equal to 31. I don't need it, it's the default, but I'm going to put it here anyhow here. Okay. Now I determine the days, the number of days based on the months, and then the range itself will go from 1 to days, well, days plus 1 exclusive. So if I do this, we will see that I get January 31 days, February 29, March 31 days, and then April is 30 days and so on. Okay. Oops. So nested loops and a condition to dynamically kind of determine the number of days in a month. So this concludes this exercise. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you next time.